welcome back. We're Ian and Anna, and in today's video, we're gonna share with you the top 10 countries to visit this year.
This is probably our longest video ever. It is jam-packed with so much helpful information, and hopefully it will inspire you guys to go travel to some of these countries. We will timestamp down in the description below so you could zoom forward.
Before we jump into our first country, let's introduce the sponsor of this video, which is our travel insurance safety wing. We've been through a whirlwind of catastrophic, unusual events while traveling, including flying home for funerals, getting sick in Bangkok, in a hospital for almost a week, motorbike accidents, so we know what's really important. And the best part about Safety Wing is they have excellent customer service with a 5-minute response time. I also love that you can do a monthly plan, so if we're not traveling for a month, we don't have to pay. All right, let's kick this off with the country of Serbia, and I know what you're thinking. Serbia has never been on your travel destination list, but here at the other side, we love sharing off the beaten path places, some hidden gems. And for us, Serbia is one of those places. Also, I'm a bit biased because my dad is from there. Before we dive into it, I just need to say this real quickly. Serbia is not Siberia and it's not Syria. I had so many friends growing up that thought I was from Russia for years. Serbia is located in Eastern Europe. It's a part of the Balkan region and it was formerly a part of Yugoslavia. One of the main reasons we want to encourage you to visit this country is because it's one of the cheapest countries in all of Europe to visit. Ian and I were able to book an Airbnb for $35 a night, an entire apartment right in the heart of the city. So let's talk about the capital city of Belgrade, which is one of the oldest cities in Europe. Let's just put it this way, my fellow Serbs love to drink, and I think this contributes to why Belgrade is world famous for its nightlife. Along the Sava and Danube rivers, you can find plenty of splavs, which are floating structures, and many of them are nightclubs. So who wouldn't want to party on the river? People from all over the world come to party in Belgrade, and it's actually really fun. I had a blast. Other than the drinking, there's so many attractions that I'm just gonna quickly run through with you, starting with Kalemegdan and the Belgrade Fortress. Kalemegdan once served as the military stronghold, but has been transformed into a park, and it is one of my favorite parks in the world because you're in a fortress. It's absolutely stunning. You get to have a picnic, maybe learn some history. There's signs available, and there's also cafes not only along the river but right next to Kalemegdan as well. So if you're going to Belgrade, you'll definitely be walking down Knez Mileva. This is a walking street where there's shopping, no cars, and here you really get a sense of the European cafe culture, which I'm sure you've heard of before, but it's basically people just eating, drinking, and smoking all day outside of cafes. They are everywhere in Belgrade, especially on this street. Another street I love is Skadarlija. This is a little bit more for tourists. You won't find a ton of locals here. It's really preserved old-time Serbia. It's got that cobblestone road and it's very quaint. Also here you can find many traditional dishes, including gibenica, sarma, pasul, which is my personal favorite, baked beans, srpska salata, cevap, burek, everything that you love in Serbian food, which by the way, is some of the best food ever. It's a little heavy and a little greasy, so make sure to order that srpska salata with your meal. Don't forget to enjoy a jelen. It's the local beer, as well as rakia. We call that šljivovic. It's plum brandy. It is extremely popular there because plums are one of Serbia's key fruits, and so are raspberries, which I actually didn't know. Serbia is one of the main exporters of raspberries in the world, and I love raspberries, so I wish I would have eaten more while I was there. The last two things you're going to have to see are Saint Sava, which is the second largest Orthodox church in all of Europe, and the Ada, a huge man-made lake with tons of restaurants, water sports, swimming, bungee jumping, all these outdoorsy things you can do, and you really get away from the city. It's my favorite place in all of Belgrade. We were lucky enough to have my uncle's motorbikes and we rode the entire perimeter. We were actually scheduled to do a Serbian road trip and really explore the country in depth, but we ended up going to my family's village and spending time with family. We were only supposed to stay there 1 or 2 days, and we ended up staying a whole week. Here we were able to really immerse ourselves in the Serbian culture, cook with my aunt, watch my uncle Dragan make plum brandy that I have brought back to the States. This is really, really interesting and a huge part of the farming culture. We have a video of us living in that village, so make sure to check that out. Other than that, there's so many things to do in Serbia. There's mountains, monasteries, national parks. There's more to do than what I'm just saying. Cities like Novi Sad are very famous, and there's plenty of festivals. I'm gonna wrap up Serbia with this. It's the perfect place to base because of how affordable it is. So if you guys want to do a Europe road trip, I recommend grabbing a car from Serbia, explore Eastern Europe. Eastern Europe is so rich in culture compared to some Western European countries, and it's just really overlooked. When I was 10 years old, we flew into Serbia and did a road trip to Austria, the Czech Republic, and Hungary, and it was an experience of a lifetime. This year, we're hoping to hit up Croatia. Yes, that does neighbor Serbia, so now you're getting a better idea of where it is. Let's go to number 9, Greece.
I don't even know if this country needs an introduction because it is so legendary. Greece is the birthplace of democracy, philosophy, the Olympic Games, and some of the most extensive history and temples in the entire world. We visited Greece for a month in July, and this is the height of peak season, making the prices higher, and there's a lot more tourists around. I recommend going during the shoulder months of May, June, and September if you want to beat the crowds and get lower prices all around. When you're thinking about Greece, you're probably picturing those islands, and I want to go over the ones we went to. I'm going to highlight our favorite things that we did on each. The first island we visited was Santorini. It's one of the most famous islands in the entire world. It was created by a volcanic eruption, one of the biggest ever in history, 3,600 years ago. This island is one of our favorites around the world, but I'm biased in saying that because this is where I proposed to Anna, right on the side of the caldera in that wonderful Airbnb. There's so many different places in Santorini, but the one you see online and in books and in movies is Ia. Those are the whitewashed buildings on the side of the caldera there with the blue dome churches. Recommend getting up super early there and walking around before everyone gets up, watching the sunrise. It is just a magical experience. If you want a cheaper side of Santorini, we found an Airbnb at Parisa Beach, which is about 40 minutes away from the famous Ia. After Santorini, we visited Milos. It's the island of colors, and this has been voted the #1 island in all of Europe. There are 2 beaches here that absolutely blew our minds. First being Firi Plaka with that white, pink, and orange cliffside right next to that piercing blue water. Then we spent a whole day of cliff jumping at Sarakaniko. It's one of the most unique beaches we've ever been to. I don't even know if you call it beach because there's only a small sliver of sand. The rest of it is this moon-like landscape where there's different heights to cliff jump from, and this was just a fun day out in the water. Just bring some beers or wine with you and enjoy a day in the sun. After Milos, we took 2 ferries. It was a 16-hour travel day all the way to the island of Ikeria. Now, if you're a first timer to Greece, I recommend mixing the more popular islands with the not so popular islands. So if you're going to Santorini, try to look for an island that's less touristy because that is truly where you find the Greek culture. Ikeria is very special and different than most islands because this is one of 5 blue zones in the world. A blue zone is where the oldest and healthiest people live on Earth, and we went to this island searching for the answers. We spent a week here and had the amazing opportunity to interview a 98-year-old Vangelis. He invited us into his house. We asked him so many different questions, and here were his answers.
Αυτό προσπαθώ να μην έχω άγχος και να ζω στη φύση έξω, να αναπνέω καθαρό αέρα, να μιλώ με τα δέντρα κλπ, με τα ζωάκια.
If you want to learn more about the 8 secrets of longevity, you could watch our whole entire Ikeria video. That island is so special to us. It's one of those islands you never want to leave. As you can see right here, Anna cried. She did not want to go. Of course, we had to visit Athens for 2 to 3 days, and this is where you could see the famous Parthenon overlooking all of Athens. Up there is the Acropolis and a bunch of other temples. If you're a history buff, definitely go to Athens for a couple days, but if you're not really into that stuff, we do not recommend because Athens is a little dirty, just like any other big city like New York City or Bangkok. Just get out of there and explore the rest of the country. Last but not least is one of our favorite islands, Zakynthos. Here we were able to rent a boat out with our friends. We didn't need boating license because the boat only went around 5 miles per hour, but there we got to sail right next to the giant limestone cliffs. We brought drinks onto the boat, some food, jumped off the boat a lot, swam into caves, to remote beaches. This is one of our favorite travel memories ever with Austin and Amanda. Another epic must-do thing here is to head to Shipwreck Beach. This is a ship literally on a beach within a cove surrounded by 1,000-foot limestone cliffs, and just being above, we actually didn't go onto the beach. We were above it looking down on it and just seeing that blue water. It looks like a movie, like Pirates of the Caribbean. Now on to Greek food. Everyone knows the Mediterranean diet, and Greece does it right. Here you could have big blocks of feta cheese, tomates, which are grape leaves. And if you're trying to save some money, we ate so many traditional Greek gyros. We ate some with halloumi cheese. It traditionally comes with lamb or lamb beef combo. I didn't even know they came with french fries, but Greek gyros have french fries in them. They have tzatziki. Oh, I want to be back there right now eating them. Lastly, this isn't food, but the traditional alcohol drink of raki or ouzo. Ouzo is traditionally Greek and raki is traditionally Turkish. Do not drink them as fast as I did. I took them like a shot that I do back in America, but you're only supposed to sip on it slowly. Now I want to teach you a couple Greek phrases that you can use on your upcoming trip. Ya is hello and goodbye. Efharisto is thank you. Yamas is cheers, so whenever you're with locals drinking some ouzo, say yamas. And then there's also the classic one, Opa. Opa! Opa! Now what puts Greece a cut above most countries is that they have an unwritten cultural law that means philoxenia. That translates to mean a friend to a stranger. We saw it on Milos when our friends Katie invited us to their place to have some raki and also gifted us some herbs. We have bay leaves, some oregano, and mint that we brought back to the US and we still use to this day. Then in Ikeria, 98-year-old Vangelis invited us into his house with his family to have dinner. This was an amazing experience. He even gifted us a whole bottle of wine. I mean, we got more wine gifted to us in Greece than I could even imagine. Every Airbnb host would offer us something, whether that be olive oil, olives, tomatoes. They just really were welcoming, and I think every single traveler will appreciate this. Now let's hop on over to Southeast Asia to number 8. Vietnam. We spent 3 weeks in Vietnam in 2018 when we were studying abroad in Bangkok, Thailand, and that was definitely not enough time. Vietnam is different, it's crazy. It's one of those countries that's gonna stimulate all of your senses at the exact same time. Now, if you're looking for somewhere to backpack around the world, Vietnam should be high on your list. It's considered a backpacker's paradise, and I'm gonna list off a couple of reasons why. First, it's one of the cheapest countries you could travel to throughout the entire world. We spent only around $25 a day per person, and you could go way cheaper than that. Hostels can be anywhere from $2 to $5. Food is dirt cheap. Second, Vietnam is a very long country, and that means one thing. It has 1,800 miles of coastline and picturesque islands right off the coast. On to number 3, if you're a history buff, Vietnam is gonna be the place for you because it has some of the oldest history in all of Southeast Asia, dating back to 2000 BC. Number 4, why Vietnam's a backpacker's paradise, the mouth-watering food you could find throughout the country. It is street food like pho or banh mi's, super cheap but delicious. If you wanna go on an adventure here, you can. If you wanna chill at a yoga retreat, you can. This country has something literally for everyone. Now, a little bit about the highlights of our 3 weeks there. We visited the 2 main cities of Ho Chi Minh in the south and then Hanoi in the north. Ho Chi Minh is a booming metropolis. The traffic's crazy all around Vietnam, but you could definitely see it here. I like to call it organized chaos. Ho Chi Minh got a name change in 1975. It used to be called Saigon, but then northern Vietnam won the war and they changed the name to Ho Chi Minh. Now around this city, there's so much to do, but one of the most memorable experiences that we did was up an hour north to the Cu Chi tunnels. The Cu Chi tunnels are a small sliver of underground tunnels used during the Vietnam War for the Viet Cong. The Viet Cong used these tunnels to hide away from American soldiers, to transport supplies throughout the entire country, and just to sleep at night. During the tour, we not only got to see the booby traps used against American soldiers, but we actually got to go inside the tunnels, go underground, and get to experience the claustrophobic conditions that the Viet Cong had to live in. Another place that we visited close to Ho Chi Minh was 5 hours east on the coast. It was called Munay, and it was an otherworldly place because there was massive white and red sand dunes along the coastline. Here you can go on a Jeep tour that takes you to fishing villages. You could ATV down the sand dunes. Now up north to Hanoi, one of the best things you could do here is get some street food. You can't walk more than 10 feet without bumping into street vendors that are selling pho or banh mi's. And if you get the chance, you definitely have to try egg coffee. I know it sounds weird, but it's just egg yolk, condensed milk, sugar mixed into a coffee, and it was rather altogether delicious, something I'd never expected to taste in my entire life. Like I said, Vietnam is a backpacker's paradise, and you'll be able to meet so many people from around the world. That's what makes travel great. We met friends at our hostel in Hanoi and headed up around 6 hours to a place called Sapa. It's the northern mountainous region of Vietnam. Here we were able to stay in a homestay in a village, and this is where they cultivate rice. Vietnam is the #5 producer of rice in the entire world. Just seeing these massive cliffs with rice terraces was an experience of a lifetime. One thing I learned from making this video for you guys is that I need to head back to Vietnam ASAP because we missed so many great places like Ha Long Bay. We missed one place that's gonna be on my bucket list, Ha Giang Loop. It's a 4-day journey with a motorcycle through the northern mountains of Vietnam. Also, there's tons of islands that we missed out on, islands that don't get the credit they deserve. Before I wrap up Vietnam, I wanna teach you 2 common phrases that you can use on your visit. Xin chào means hello, and Kam Un is thank you. Now it's time for number 7. It's on the opposite side of the world in the Atlantic Ocean, the Bahamas.
Home to the world famous swimming pigs. We all know Exuma, Bahamas is on your bucket list, and it should be. Not just for the swimming pigs, this place has so many amazing things to offer. Sadly, I know we're always offering some budget-friendly tips, but I don't know how many I'm gonna be able to give in this one because I was actually there nannying with the family that I used to babysit, and Ian just tagged along because they like Ian. We stayed at the Grand Isle Resort in the penthouse. Again, how am I saying this? Although, you know, maybe if you have kids out there, you're thinking of looking at places like Atlantis because they have water slides and stuff. You're definitely not going to find that here in the Exumas. You're going to want to get out on that water. We had a private boat with Exuma Water Sports. The first day we saw those incredible swimming pigs. They were so much fun to see. They had really big balls, which Ian was obsessed with. He couldn't believe it. I don't know if he's ever seen balls that big. And we were able to hold the little piglets, which was my favorite part, and also swim with stingrays. Afterwards, we hit up this lizard island and saw a bunch of iguanas, and we ended off that first day with a local experience, eating some local food. I really recommend doing a private boat, but again, I wasn't paying, and they do offer group tours, public boats, and your trip is probably going to be scheduled for you. I do believe if you have a private boat, you can kind of pick and choose what you want to do, because on our second day, we actually went back to the pigs. I can't remember why we did this, but we went in the morning, and let me tell ya, those pigs are hungry because one of the moms got bit on the hip. Yeah, be careful with those piggies. They just want food, just like your dog at home. However, my favorite part was the journey there, where we got to see Tim McGraw and Faith Hill's vacation home, as well as David Copperfield's. These people, I mean, they got some money, you know what I mean? Exuma has by far the bluest water. Snorkeling is one of my favorite things to do, and the Bahamas does not let you down. At the end of the day, when we're sitting down on our couch and we're talking about it, we always agreed that Exuma has the bluest water we've ever seen. Let's hit up number 6, Malaysia.
Personally, I think Malaysia is one of the most underrated countries in Southeast Asia, right alongside Laos. Before traveling here, I had no idea Malaysia has 2 separate parts. First is West Malaysia, and that is the mainland squished between Thailand and Singapore. And then there's East Malaysia, which is on the island of Borneo. Borneo is the 3rd largest island in the entire world, right behind Greenland and New Guinea. There's 3 countries that make up Borneo. In the north, there is Brunei and Malaysia, and in the south, it's Indonesia. First, let's start with mainland Malaysia. This is where Kuala Lumpur is located. It has a great international airport, and I think it's a great hub for anyone trying to travel throughout Southeast Asia. It's a clean, modern city. 4 hours north of Kuala Lumpur is Penang, and this is the food capital of Malaysia. Sadly, we did not visit, and that's someplace we really need to go back to. If you didn't know already, Malaysia takes their food seriously. The reason the food in Malaysia is so important and delicious is because Malaysia is a cultural melting pot. There, you'll see so many different ethnicities. You'll see Chinese, Malay, and Indians throughout the country. Now, mainland Malaysia is great and all, but what really blew us away about this country is the Borneo side of things. I'm gonna give you the highlights of our trip, and I truly believe this deserves a spot on everyone's bucket list before they die. Our first stop was Kota Kinabalu, and here we got to visit night markets that were so wild. We got to visit mosques, and then there were 5 islands right off the coast to island hop to. This really blew us away and was a great starting point for the rest of our adventures. Then only an hour plane ride away was Sandakan, and here we got to experience baby turtles hatching and making their way to the ocean. This was a once in a lifetime experience to be on the island, stay on there, get to see conservation in action, and those baby turtles were super cute. After that, we headed on the most exhilarating 4-day tour through the Kinabatangan River, where we got to see the Big Five. The Kinabatangan River is located in one of the oldest rainforests on Earth, right behind the Amazon, and this is where the animals will take your breath away. The Big Five animals that you will see here are the orangutans, proboscis monkeys, which have these crazy noses. I didn't even know they existed before this trip. Cute pygmy elephants. You have the largest crocodile on Earth. And lastly is the bird called the rhinoceros hornbill. We were so lucky that we got to see all 5 of these animals during the trip. One of my favorite parts of it was seeing the monkeys high up in the trees fight each other. After that tour, we headed down to Sipadan to one of the top 10 dive sites in the entire world. We stayed on houses on stilts in the middle of the ocean. And we got to hang with locals, go on dives every single day. And I would say there's diving and then there's diving at Sipadan. We were surrounded by hundreds of barracudas, sharks, turtles that you can't even count. We went into caves, saw the turtle tomb, which was kind of sad because that is where turtles get lost deep in a cave and they can't find their way back out. If you're at all interested in diving, you really need to make your way to Sipadan. This will change your life. And last but not least, you could head to Kuching, which is the food hub over on this side of Malaysia. And here you could have 2 of our favorite dishes, which are koldo mee and Sarawak laksa.
Thailand is the country we owe so much of our lives to right now. This is the first country Ian and I had visited together. No parents, on our own, when we were studying abroad in 2018, our junior year of college. Total, we've lived in Thailand for about 6 months. So we definitely know this country like the back of our hand. It's so hard because I just want to keep going and going, and I'm gonna try to make this part not too long. With perfect tropical islands, lush jungles, the nicest people in the world, and the absolute best food ever, it's no surprise that Thailand has emerged as one of the most visited tourist destinations in the world. Let's kick it off with Koh Phangan. This is where the famous full moon party is. Back in 1985, a bunch of tourists were like, oh my gosh, this is the most beautiful full moon in the world, and they made this party, and now millions of people come every year to have a party on this beach, and it's freaking awesome. This island has so much more to offer, including a very fun slip and fly and one of our favorite beaches, Lila Beach. I also really think that if you guys are interested in scuba diving at all, Koh Tao is the island for you. We were able to get our scuba diving license for only $300, and on our last day we actually got to see a whale shark on our final dive. It was the perfect way to commence that trip and getting our license. Another great one that I'm sure you guys have heard of is Koh Phi Phi. It's probably the most famous island in Thailand, making it definitely a bit more touristy, but still worth the visit. If you can't make it to a full moon party, there is a beach on Koh Phi Phi that really carries that vibe every single night. There's fire shows, live music, drinking buckets. Be careful of the buckets. It's basically a bucket of alcohol and you will get sick. We're gonna go through the rite of passages in Thailand a little later because there's like a few funny ones. Koh Phi Phi does have that exciting nightlife, but there's tons to do during the day, including some great snorkeling. We were able to walk to Shark Point on the other side of the island where we rented some snorkel gear and went off the shore, found some sharks. They're very small, friendly black tip sharks. The most famous thing to do there is probably go to Maya Bay, which is known for being in the movie The Beach with Leonardo DiCaprio. On that tour, you can also go to Monkey Island where you'll see tons of monkeys. Please don't feed them. They're crazy. Don't feed the monkeys. You'll get bit and then you'll have to go get rabies shots and it's a mess. Don't feed the monkeys. There's also some Bruise cruises available. We did not do one. We opted for Mr. Chet's cruise. It was much more low-key and private, and I preferred that. Other than those islands, Koh Lanta's a great one because it's very low-key, as well as Koh Chang. And one place we really hope to visit when we go back is Koh Sak. So I would definitely put that on your list. It's a national park and it looks really cool. If you guys want to hit up the north of Thailand, you gotta check out Chiang Mai. Much better than Bangkok. Bangkok's a little too crazy. I think if you're only going to Thailand for a little bit, nobody is gonna like Bangkok. You have to really live there to like Bangkok. Check out Chiang Mai. Great culture, more artsy, but just an hour from there are some amazing mountains. Thailand literally has something for everyone. And then let's get to Bangkok. My favorite thing to do in Bangkok is just eat. Literally, I wait to eat all day. Before we get into the food, let's talk about some temples that you should see. Wat Pho is where the reclining Buddha is. Wat Arun is my personal favorite, and to get to that, you literally take a taxi boat from the reclining Buddha across the river. It's a really cool experience. I highly recommend doing that. And of course, the Emerald Buddha is also very popular, and they're all in a very similar area. So you could do that in a day. Some really touristy things is Khao San Road. Lovely partying and some things you'll never see unless you go on this road, so you gotta check it out at least once. My favorite market is Ratchada Night Market. I hope you check that out as well. And if you're feeling bougie, hit up the Sky Bar. This was featured in the Hangover 2 movie. We went with Ian's parents. They treated us and it was so much fun, and the food was magnificent. As for seeing elephants, please don't ride elephants. They're very abused. You can go to a sanctuary where a lot of the rescued elephants are, but some of those are still unethical. So if you're going to do an elephant sanctuary, please look into it as much as you can. We went to one with our class, and I definitely think it's reputable because I don't think our school would have taken us there, and I'll put it down in the description below. Moving aside from things to do, let's talk about the people. Thai people are some of the nicest, but one of my favorite things about Thailand is the fact that a lot of them don't speak English. So you have to be patient with one another, but they're still gonna always help you out, lend a helping hand, try to go on Google and translate things. It's really sweet. This is the country of smiles. Everyone is happy. That being said, don't be fooled. Of course, there are some bad people. So let's talk about those rite of passages you have to go through to say you've traveled Thailand, including getting scammed. You'll either get scammed by a taxi where they don't put the meter on, and at the end they'll just ask for a lump sum of money, and since you're a tourist, you don't really know how much a baht is, but they end up charging you way more than the ride should have been. To avoid this, make sure you say, hey, run the meter, or have the Grab app downloaded because that will be a fixed rate. Grab is their Uber. Another scam is just walking around. Sometimes people are gonna come talk to you. They'll try to get you in a tuk-tuk, which is those tricycle things, which by the way, you gotta ride in. Don't do this tuk-tuk scam. You can actually just look it up. It's very interesting, but it has to happen to everyone. It's happened to us. It's not a big deal. And of course, another rite of passage is renting a motorbike. While you're on those islands, you gotta get out on a bike and just explore. We've ridden motorbikes all over Southeast Asia. I promise you'll be fine. We've gotten in accidents, you'll be fine. No big deal. Let's wrap this section up with food, what we're all wanting to hear, because it is the best food in the world. If you like pad thai, drunken noodles, there is no better place to eat it than Thailand itself. While you're there, you gotta have some curries. All the curries are great. Red curry, yellow curry, green curry. Please take a cooking class. It's very interesting. And if you have time to venture out to Salea, that is where our university was, and there's a little shop there with Curry Mama. We can put the information in the description below, but she makes some of the best pad thai and chicken steak. Right down the street from there, there's a squid guy who grills some squid and has this amazing sauce with it. It's very spicy. If you get the chance, check out J5. She was on a Netflix special, and she makes this incredible crab omelet. Oh God, I wish I was in Thailand right now. And if all else fails, never stray away from your local 7-Eleven. There will be a 7-Eleven every 5th store. Now I'm in the States, and anytime I see a 7-Eleven, I'm like, oh, Thailand, I miss it so much. Let's end this part with a simple thank you. For women, you would say Khop Khun Ka. You have to make sure you say ka at the end. Khop Khun Ka. For men, you'd say Khop Khun Kap. Okay guys, it's time to move on to number 4, Turkey.
To be honest, Turkey was never a place that was high on our travel list, and shame on us. One of the reasons we wanted to go to Turkey in the first place was when we saw a place called Cappadocia on Instagram of people flying over these fairy tale landscapes in hot air balloons. Even though Cappadocia inspired us to visit Turkey, the rest of the country really made us never want to leave. What makes Turkey even more special is that it resides in both Asia and Europe. To be more specific, Turkey is 5% in Europe and 95% in Asia. And that brings us to our first location where both continents meet. And personally for me, it's one of the best cities in the entire world, Istanbul. The weird thing about Istanbul, it used to be the capital city to 3 huge empires, the Roman, Byzantine, and Ottoman, but it is no longer the capital of Turkey. Even though it's not the capital, Istanbul is the most populated city in all of Turkey with more than 15 million residents, making it super packed. Istanbul is one of those places where you could spend months and still not discover everything that it has to offer. Some of the places that we went to were the Grand Bazaar, which is the largest covered market in the world with over 60 streets covered and 3,000 shops. When you're walking through the Grand Bazaar, you are surrounded by Turkish rugs, Turkish delights, and more tea and spices than you'll ever see in your life. Fun fact, Turkey is predominantly Muslim and there's over 82,000 mosques around the country. 3,000, which I think are the most predominant ones, are located right in Istanbul. We visited 3 mosques, Süleymaniye, Hagia Sophia, and the Blue Mosque. Although Hagia Sophia is one of the most important religious structures in the world, our favorite was Süleymaniye Mosque, and the reason for that is because there weren't a lot of tourists here. It was really stunning, and there's some rooftop cafes that are a perfect viewpoint of all of Istanbul. All right, I have something to admit. Before visiting Turkey, I wasn't the biggest fan of cats, but once we went to Istanbul, this city is nicknamed the City of Cats. You won't find more cats around the world than right here in Istanbul. The locals adore them, they take care of them, they feed them. I don't know, it really made me love cats, so thank you, Turkey. Of course, you have the famous walking street called Istiklal Avenue, and here you're able to fight off vendors for ice cream, drink a beer in an electrifying environment, and even shop for an affordable price. But by far, our favorite thing we did in Turkey was the food tour with Latif. We spent the entire day eating like a local, whether that was our olives, cheese, and Turkish coffee to start out our day, or the famous Iskender kebab, which is lamb on top of pita bread doused with yogurt and melted butter. Also, fun fact, get ready to drink more tea than ever before. Turkey is actually the #1 consumer of tea in the whole world, and it's heavenly. Now on to the place that brought us to Turkey, Cappadocia. This is the #1 place to go hot air ballooning in the entire world, and I cannot get over the landscape there. It rivals places like Utah back in the United States, and it was formed 60 million years ago with volcanic eruptions. For our hot air balloon experience, we got up at 3:30 a.m. and paid around $90 per person, which is quite a steal. We were pretty unlucky because there was a storm that pushed back our departure, so we weren't in the sky when the sun rose, which sucked, but it still was such a crazy experience. You glide right past the fairy chimneys and castles, and let me tell you, being surrounded by hundreds of hot air balloons is a once-in-a-lifetime experience. The whole vibe of Cappadocia is just mesmerizing. You literally stay at cave hotels that were once inhabited by Christians hiding from the Romans. Because of its stronghold along the Silk Route, Cappadocia went through a lot of wars and battles. And that's why people living in Cappadocia carved holes in caves and created underground cities to hide away. We even ran into locals hiking this beautiful landscape and spent the night under the stars drinking wine, eating baklava, and dancing the night away. I can keep going on and on about how great Turkey is. I mean, you have the white cotton candy terraces at Pamukkale and the unforgettable coastline in the south with islands that take your breath away. If you don't know where to go next, definitely check out our 3 Turkey videos, and maybe, just maybe, that will be your next destination. Time to head back to our home country, #3, the United States.
So this will be the largest country that we're covering. And for that reason, I'm very confused, but we're just gonna give it our best shot. As you know, the US is made up of 50 states, each of which has their own way of life. So if you get the chance, the more states you can go to, the absolute better. We've actually been to a total of 27 states, a handful of which was covered during our 4-month road trip across the US, from Cleveland to California. Before we go any further, I want to let you know that we have a USA road trip travel guide where we give you how we traveled for $30 a day, all the campsites we stayed at, everything from our routes to activities you can find in this guide. It will be in the link in the description below. And while you're on our website, you might want to check out our American Kids preset pack. This is just photo filters for your pictures that you take on the road. And these presets work really well on all your pictures, not just the US ones, but I was just inspired by that trip. So that's why it's called American Kids Preset Pack. Although there are a numerous amount of ways that you can travel the US, I think we can all agree one of the most exciting and best ways to do it is by road tripping. Road tripping is an American pastime that is something we all love to do. We grew up doing. I mean, we used to drive from Cleveland to Florida instead of fly, because why fly when you can drive for half the price? That's how I grew up, and I'm sure a lot of you can relate to that. I also have that Midwest thought of Donna and Kelso from that 70s show, road tripping from Wisconsin in their VW van all the way to California. And I just know this is a shared dream, not only amongst Americans, but people everywhere. I've heard many foreigners talk about how they want to come to the US and road trip it. Lucky for Ian and I, we are born in this country, so it made a lot of things easier. For foreigners, I don't have many tips on how to keep costs low when it comes to renting cars, what you have to do for your phone plan, visas, all that stuff. But if you are from the US, I know you can take something away from this. Quick background, Ian and I bought a Ford Transit Connect for $6,500. We built it out for less than $400. We really just put a bed in there and made it look pretty. Having this van what made us keep costs so low because we didn't have to pay for a night's stay. So for 4 months, we slept at free campsites. If you factor in the price of the van, obviously it's going to raise that daily cost, but we still have that van and we use it every single day to drive. So it was totally an investment worth taking for us. But we have many friends who just sleep out of their Tacomas, their Teslas, anything you can sleep in. There's free places all over this country, so you can still travel the US for very cheap. Over our 4 months, we left from Cleveland. We drove through South Dakota, Wyoming, Utah, Oregon, Idaho, Arizona, Nevada, and California, not in that order. Some of my favorite experiences on that trip was hiking Angel's Landing. It's one of the scariest hikes in America, and that's located in Zion National Park in Utah. I loved camping outside the Grand Tetons. We had this really cool free campsite that just overlooked the mountains, and I didn't even want to hike. I was so mad Ian made me hike every day. I just wanted to sit there and cook and look at the mountains because it was so pretty. I also love one of our campsites in Mount Hood, Oregon. Camping in general was really what I liked about this trip because those are the small moments that make everything so special, and in those moments you get to reflect on all the cool things you saw. So just remember to always enjoy what you're doing, because I'm wishing right now that I was camping, you know? On top of all that, I loved seeing the Grand Canyon, Antelope Canyon, Vegas, and one of my all-time favorites was road tripping the coast of California, seeing Malibu up through Big Sur, and then we ended up in San Francisco. This whole entire road trip was, I mean, a once in a lifetime thing that everyone should either do alone or with their kids. I know my mom did it with her parents when she was younger, and it's definitely something that everybody remembers. Overall, we really focused on national parks because this country has the best national parks ever. My top 5 that we've been to are Bryce, Zion, Yosemite, Arches, and Crater Lake. The interesting part is 3 of those are in Utah. So if you really love national parks and you've never seen anything like the pictures you've seen of Utah, I just recommend going there and road tripping Utah because it is mind-blowing. So many Americans out there are going to fight me on this, but I believe the West Coast kind of beats the East. Not necessarily the West Coast, but just the West in general has, to me, the most incredible views I've ever seen. You can't find that over here on the East Coast. I've been to a lot of Eastern states. I'm from the Midwest in Ohio. I've lived in Florida. I'm currently in North Carolina. If you do want to see something that is truly world renowned, I recommend going to Vermont and New Hampshire in the fall season because they have some of the world's best foliage. We've lived in Florida, like I said, so hitting up those natural springs, swimming with manatees, and visiting some of the best beaches in this nation is what Florida is all about. And of course, guys, the major cities. I mean, there's countless major cities in this country, including New York, Chicago, LA, Austin. There is so much more left to explore of this country. I know that growing up, I totally took it for granted. I mean, I went to Thailand and Philippines and Southeast Asia before I ever even went to Utah or Wyoming. Keep in mind how grateful you should be to live in this country. If you have a car, that car can take you anywhere. So this is really just us encouraging you to get out and explore one of the most beautiful places in the entire world, the USA. Coming up is number 2, Indonesia.
Known as the Lost World of Asia, Indonesia is one of the most biodiverse places in the world, and it's the only place you could find a rhino, orangutan, elephant, bear, and tiger all in the same forest. Fun fact, Indonesia is the 4th most populous country in the world with over 273 million people, just behind the United States. Indonesia is absolutely massive. It's the world's largest island country by area and by number of islands, with more than 18,000 islands. Oh, and let's not forget, Indonesia is home to the world's largest lizard, a real-life dragon. Now on to places that we visited while in Indonesia. We went to Jakarta only for a couple days, and the one thing we do remember is it's a bustling city, but they do have some luxury malls. After Jakarta, we went over to Bali. We actually spent 2 months here and spent Christmas in Bali. Who would have thought? A tropical Christmas. It was a good time, but it was definitely different from those cold winters back in Cleveland. Nicknamed the Island of the Gods, Bali is an exotic island filled with waterfalls, volcanoes, black sand beaches, yoga retreats, and more rice paddies than you can count. Fascinating thing about Balinese culture is that they have a total of 11 names, and they get it according to when they were born. It was so confusing when we first arrived because we would meet over 20 Wayans in one day. Later learned that Wayan is the firstborn in a family. I'm the 4th born, so it is Ketut. I would be Ketut in Bali. Kuta, Canggu, and Seminyak are the hubs for nomads and foreigners because these villages are close to the airport and more westernized with beach clubs, co-working spaces, gyms, and everything you need during your day-to-day life. We decided to venture up an hour north from here and stayed in Ubud for majority of our time in Bali. This was the cultural center of Bali and the filming location of Eat, Pray, Love. You could find some of the cheapest homestays and Airbnbs around this area. We stayed in one for $12 a night, and that included breakfast. This was with some locals, and it was right near the most beautiful rice paddies. By far the best thing you can do in Bali is rent a motorbike for only $4 a day and cruise around the island. Around this area, you can visit gorgeous waterfalls like our favorite Tibumana, and if you go for sunrise, you get the whole place to yourself, which is just magical. Up north in Ahmed was another crazy experience where we stayed right at the foot of Mount Agung. This is an active volcano that last erupted in 2019. Just seeing this volcano from so many different viewpoints was astonishing. We also ended up taking a boat ride with a local fisherman and caught mahi-mahi. This was absolutely nuts seeing the fishermen fight off these massive fish in such a small boat. Now on to the smaller islands surrounding Bali. You could visit the 3 Gili Islands. Some are known for partying, but we stayed on the chiller one called Gili Mano and swam offshore to see the underwater statues. These things are creepy and fascinating all at the same time. Then you could hit up Nusa Penida, which I consider to be the most adventurous island. Here you can see the famous T-Rex beach called Kelingking. Videos and pictures don't do it justice because when you see this from above, you will go speechless. We went to Kelingking twice. The reason for that is it's way less crowded in the morning, and the only other people there are a ton of crazy monkeys. We actually made the sketchy trek down to Kelingking Beach, and this is one of those travel memories that I will never forget because not only is it sketchy, but it's also exhausting. Once you get down to the beach though, the waves are massive, so if you are a strong swimmer, riding these waves was so much fun. Another great spot on Nusa Penida is called Diamond Beach. Here you literally walk on the side of a cliff to get down there, but it's absolutely worth it because just look at this place. Nusa Penida is also a famous place to go snorkeling and diving with manta rays. Unfortunately, Unfortunately, we got unlucky because they're usually there year round, but for the 3 or 4 days we were on the island, they were nowhere to be found. And I left the best for last. If you're watching this right now, please go to Indonesia and do this tour. We've said this numerous times in different videos, but the best tour we've ever taken was the 4-day Komodo Island tour. On this tour, we boarded a boat with 20 different strangers from around the world and sailed the sea for 4 straight days, visiting pink sand beaches, remote uninhabited islands, and finally hitting up Komodo National Park, where you can see the biggest lizard in the world, the Komodo dragon. These lizards are massive and can eat a full-grown deer. There have been several humans that have been killed by these dragons on the island before, so be careful, but you should be good with your guide. Our favorite part about this tour was making lifelong friends, drinking beers late into the night, jumping off the boat, and being totally off-grid in one of the most biodiverse places in the world. Finally, we're bringing you to number 1, the Philippines.
We constantly get asked, where is our favorite place in the world to travel? And of course, this is like an impossible question, but more often than not, we find ourselves answering this question by saying the Philippines. And why? Because it's more fun in the Philippines. That is the country's legitimate slogan. I am not making this up, and you're about to see why. With over 7,000 islands, but 3 of these islands have consistently been voted the best in the world by major travel publications. These 3 islands are Boracay, Palawan, and Siargao. Boracay is home to one of the best beaches in the Philippines, which we've actually never been here, but we're excited to go one day. We have, however, been to Palawan, only 2 sections. We visited El Nido and Coron. Both are home to massive limestone rock formations that tower over these pristine waters. The most popular thing to do on these islands is a boat tour. We did the ultimate island hopping tour in Coron, and I think it ran us between $30 and $40 per person, which is just amazing value for what you get. You embark on one of the most majestic adventures of your life while sailing through water that turns 50 different shades of blue. We spent practically a whole day going to Kayangan Lake, Twin Lagoon. We swam at a shipwreck, and there's actually a lot more on that list. Of all the spots in the Philippines we've been to, I think that this ultimate island tour gave us the most pretty views. I know that's like a hard thing to say, but I really think where we were in Coron is the prettiest of all. I don't know if it's my favorite, but it's the most beautiful. You don't need to spend too much time on Coron because there's actually not much to do on the mainland. And after that, you can just take a quick ferry from Coron to the big island of Palawan, which is where El Nido is. In El Nido, you also have those island hopping tour adventures. We were in a small town called Bukana Beach. It was about an hour from the touristy part of El Nido. Here we met some of the most amazing people. Filipinos are extremely friendly. They are all up in your business, and all they want to do is help you and hang out and talk. They speak almost perfect English. And finally, the 3rd island that was voted one of the best to visit is my personal favorite, Siargao. Sadly, the Philippines has just been hit by a typhoon, and Siargao was drastically affected. Some of our favorite spots on the island are completely destroyed, so we're gonna have some information in the description below that we hope you check out, because this island has given us so much and we just want to be able to give back to it. Thanks guys, and let's move on to why Siargao is so special. It is the surfing capital of the Philippines. The government realized how many wayfinders were coming there to surf, and the government decided to brand it as the new Bali, which it kind of is. It's the perfect way to explain Siargao. Although I love Bali, it has become a bit touristy and kind of crowded. Siargao still maintains that small island vibe with really just one stretch of restaurants and things to do. But the amount of adventures you get to have on Siargao are endless. Starting with, of course, surfing. This is one of the first places Ian and I really tried surfing. And we also did boogie boarding on the big waves to the right of Cloud9 because we were not about to try surfing in the big waves. But they have like 4-footer waves, 6-foot waves. It's a really good place to surf if you like to do that. Afterwards, you can grab one of my favorite smoothie bowls ever at Shaka. I don't know if it's there right now because of the typhoon, but it is like the best smoothie bowl. And you can find Shaka all over the Philippines too, just so you know. There's plenty of tours that you can do off of Siargao, including the 3-island tour, which we did, and the Sahotan Cove tour. People love the Sahotan Cove tour because it reminds them of Palawan with those limestone rocks. basically implying that Siargao is the only island you need to see since it has a little bit of everything. They also have that world famous rope swing that's surrounded by hundreds of lush palm trees. You can explore caves, see white sand beaches in the north, and waterfalls. Honestly, the list goes on, and I really hope you get to see Siargao one day because it is glorious. Another spot that we love is Cebu. We actually went there and visited it again when we went back to the Philippines. We actually hit up the exact same spots, which are in Mobile. Here you can swim with millions of sardines, and this is one of only 2 spots in the world that you get to swim with sardines. I know that sounds crazy because we think of sardines as like this yucky food, but it's really, really magical. Once a team of marine conservatives declared the Philippines as the geographic center of marine biodiversity in the world. So it's really a paradise for underwater life, and you can find this all over the Philippines. While you're swimming with the sardines, you will see turtles. Please do not touch any of the wildlife. This is a lesson I learned the hard way. I was a little bit more ignorant back in the day and I touched a turtle. You can be fined up to $1,000 and get jail time in the Philippines. They really take preserving their wildlife seriously, which I appreciate. So yeah, just don't do that, please. And one thing you have to do, absolutely 100%, is canyoneer to Kawasan Falls. Kawasan Falls is tiers of waterfalls, and you basically trek through a jungle, swim through lagoons, and jump off cliffs to get to the final waterfall. It was an experience that I had never even heard of, but has to be one of my all-time favorites in the world. Because if you know us, we love water, we love cliff jumping, and it was just a day of absolute chaos and fun. While you're in Cebu, make sure to hit up Siquijor Island. It's one of our very special places because it's very chill, not so crowded. Here they have an amazing cliff jump into the sea, but while you're not adventuring, there's just other things to do like snorkeling and relax. I love relaxing. It's a great chill island. We've also visited destinations like Bohol, seeing those chocolate hills, and Dumaguete. There's a place there called the Maldives of the Philippines where you're gonna see those houses on stilts. And everywhere we've been in the Philippines is worth visiting. It's just up to you to decide which path you want to take, and hey, if you have the time, go everywhere. All right guys, that's a wrap for this video. Sorry we haven't been posting that often lately. We took a very much needed few weeks off, but we're back and have some amazing things coming your way. Don't forget to keep up with our day-to-day on Instagram, and if you got any value out of this video, give it a thumbs up. Please subscribe, and we will see you in the next one. Bye guys, love you. Woo woo!